What's the difference between the big wheel and small wheel CRF125? Well, obviously the wheels, but in this video I'm going to share with you all the differences between the models and how that affects how each one rides. So first, the small wheel, it has a 17-inch front wheel and a 14-inch rear wheel, while the big wheel has a 19-inch front wheel and a 16-inch rear wheel. And the main difference that makes is the smaller wheels, they're a little bit easier to turn and handle for smaller riders, while the bigger wheels and tires, they roll over obstacles better. Like when you're riding on the trail and you got bumps or rocks, the larger diameter rolls over them with less effort. Let's say you're going over a log that's a foot tall. Compared to the small wheel, the big wheel version, that 1 foot log is going to feel a little bit smaller and easier to get over. Moving on to the seat height, the small wheel has a 29.1 inch seat height, while the big wheel has a 30.9 inch seat height. Almost 2 inches different, making it better if you have longer legs or you're taller. So if you're in the 4'8" to like 5 foot height range, then the small wheel is going to fit you pretty well depending on your inseam length, where the big wheel is better if you're like 5 foot to 5'4" tall. And having a lower seat height, it makes it easier to handle because the bike feels lighter. The center of gravity is lower, so it doesn't feel as top heavy, meaning that when you're riding at low speeds, it's not going to tip over as easily as a taller bike would, even if it weighs about the same. And then the wheelbase. The small wheel has a 48-inch wheelbase, while the big wheel is 49.4. So almost 1.5 inches. What does that mean? Well, it's going to be a little bit more stable for a bigger rider, or if you're riding faster on bumpy terrain. So think of it like the small wheel going over bumps, it's going to rock quite a bit. With that longer wheelbase going over the same bumps, it's not going to rock quite as much. It's not a huge difference, especially if you're a newer rider, but it's something. And if you're looking for your first dirt bike or your next dirt bike and not sure which to get, I do offer one-on-one consulting where you can talk to me, go through all your questions, figuring out the right bike, the right gear. You can get that on my website. The link is in the description below. Now the weight is slightly different. The small wheel is 194 pounds, while the big wheel is 199 pounds. And the added weight is mainly from the bigger wheels and a couple other small components, which I'll cover in just a minute. Overall, 5 pounds, it's really not that noticeable, especially if you're a brand new rider. The difference in size is going to feel more noticeable than the weight. Next is the suspension. It still has the same style of components, but the small wheel, the suspension travel is 5.9 and 5.5 inches, where the big wheel is 6.7 and 6.6. And what does that mean? Well, with the longer travel suspension on the bigger wheel, it just makes it a little bit more comfortable when you're trail riding or hitting bumps, because the longer suspension will soak up those bumps a little bit more. What about the engine and transmission? Is that still the same? Yep. And how about the price? Well, a small wheel retails for $34.99 and the big wheel is $38.99, not including tax and fees. $400 difference, which is about the same difference when looking at used bikes. The big wheels generally have a higher demand and are worth $300 to $500 more than the small wheel. If you're interested in this Honda CRF125F but want to know a little bit more about it and what to expect when buying one, you should check out my review right here. I'm Kelly Fager from MX Hideout. I want you to ride safe so that you can have more fun.